I'm Lance.
I'm Jeremy.
And we are Hard to Master, where we take a look at games that are hard to master, such as
Nucleum by Board and Dice.
Nucleum is a Euro game in which you are going to be playing in a European 1940s, 50s. I'm not 100% sure what the time era is, but it's definitely in the past. And it's a fictionalized time era in which nuclear power has already come to existence. And you are trying to get it to these different cities. And you are trying to energize your buildings, building up a network, getting that nice nuclear power, nucleum, to your cities, rather than relying upon coal and not as efficient energy sources. So that's the theme behind this game. The goal is to have the most points when the game comes to an end, and you will be getting your points in several different ways. This is a bit of a point salad kind of game, as you're going to be getting points in a lot of different ways. And again, whoever has the most points is going to be the winner in this one. We are going to give you a brief idea of how this game works, and then we'll share our thoughts on this game.
And if you want something even more brief, just go check out the Instagram for a real review in 90 seconds. I can give you a pretty good idea, but you're here for the long haul. So let's give you a little bit more, definitely more than 90 seconds, but we're not going to give you the 2-hour video that you're looking for.
Yeah. If you do want a full how to play,
message me.
Yeah, there's definitely videos out there that are going to give that to you. But this is a pretty heavy game. It's going to be too much for us to cover and do the review and try to keep this video short and succinct. So we're going to give you the brief overview of what's happening in this game. So here you can see you've got the board here, and this is the board for 2 to 3 players. Is that correct, Jeremy?
This is a 3 to 4 player side. We do have the game set up now for 3 players. As you can see, a lot of the 4-player pieces are covered up by these blocker tokens. Now you figure that out based on these setup cards. You're going to draw one that's going to fill out most of the board, but you will have to place 3 additional neutral cities. So you're going to be drawing 3 more cards and placing an additional neutral city as long as you can place it in that area. Otherwise, you would draw a new card.
So the board's going to change depending upon how many players you're playing with and that variable setup. So it might not look exactly like how we have it set out here. But just know that this is generally how the board's going to look. And most rounds you will be playing with your player board. I'm going to bring this on frame here. And note that you will have 2 different sets of boards here. You're going to have your main board with buildings that you will be hopefully building, as well as turbines and your mines that you are working to build out here, taking up these spots that you can see out on the board. You do have some workers as well as some resource tracks that you are going to be trying to move up throughout the course of the game, as that's going to give you more resources to work with when you take that recharge action, which we'll explain that here in a second. And over here on this side, you're going to have your technology board, which is going to change depending on what technology you select for yourself. We're not going to get too much in the weeds of that, but just know that these boards are going to be different depending on whether you're A, C, B, D, whatever.
That's your new alphabet, by the way.
Yeah, A, C, B, D. Goes in that order. Now, I'm going to leave this up here on frame, and you can see this portion of the board, and we're going to use that to kind of explain what actions you're doing. But I do want you to see the player board here so that we can kind of make sure you get a good understanding of how these actions are going to work. Now, most of the time with your actions, you'll be taking one of your tiles here. Now, everybody gets different sets of tiles to start the game. As you can see, these all say C. Well, maybe you can't see it. It's pretty small. But they say C here in the middle. They also say C on the back. And that's because I have the C technology. And everybody's going to have different tiles. But what everybody will have is this one wild tile.
And we do want to add, the tiles are slightly different. They all have the same actions on them pretty much, which are your standard actions, but they may be paired up with other ones.
Paired up differently.
So you have different colored tiles that might be placed, or maybe ones that work a little bit better together. You also have this one piece on your board we do want to note that will tie into your technology, and that will make the second turbine asymmetric for each player.
Right. So back to these little tiles here. Now these tiles are going to be where the action selection mechanic of this game comes into play, because when you select one of these, you will be taking the 2 actions that are on that particular tile, and you can do these in any order. You could do the top, then the bottom, or the bottom and the top, or you don't have to do one of the actions. However, that's not going to be very efficient, and you'll want to limit the number of times you do that, if ever. Now, you're going to select one of these to play, and you'll put it in the most left box that is open up here at the top of your board. Again, this would not be on the game board, it would be below it. But then you're going to be able to do those 2 actions. So let's talk about what some of those actions might be. This top action right here is just going to be to simply advance on one of these resource tracks. Real quickly, what these tracks are about: increasing how much money you'll get, increasing the number of workers that you'll get, and victory points every time you take the recharge action, which again, we'll get to that here in just a second.
And just to be clear, Lance means income track. They are resource tracks, but they do only provide you income in that recharge phase.
Yeah, you're not going to get these immediately, only when you take that recharge action. This action right here with the calligraphy pin is going to be the option to get these contract tokens, which are going to be way over here on this side of the board. And you're mostly focusing on those top 4 options for you. There's going to be 3 down here, and those are only going to be when you meet the conditions on those tokens, and they're going to be pretty difficult conditions to meet. You're not going to meet those right off the bat in the beginning of the game. It's going to take some time to build up to that. But with this action, you're going to claim one of these tokens over here, one of these contracts, and think of these contracts as a contract. It's asking you to meet some sort of condition in exchange for a benefit. When you claim one of those, you're going to slot it in one of these 4 spots right here. Now, you do start the game with a contract already, and it will be in this bottom option. But when you take one of those contracts, you can put it in any open slot here, and you'll gain the immediate benefit for that, whether that be money, workers, Nucleum, or achievement stars, which we'll talk about that here in a second. So that's going to be the contract option. Another option that you might take with these tiles is the building option. And if you'll see on your board, you do have that building icon right here, and that allows you to build one of these buildings at a cost of dollars that is printed here on the left side of the board. Now, you don't have to do these in any specific order. You could go straight to paying $5 to do one of these big bad boys.
Are you saying taller or dollars?
Taller, excuse me.
Dollars are dollars. So if you watch other how to play videos, just so you know, it's not a speech problem we have here. Taller is dollar.
It's an ignorance problem on my part. So yeah, you will just simply pay dollars to be able to put out whatever building you're wanting to do, and you will put it on the board. Now, you do have to, at the first building that you build is going to be where you have
started your network.
Where you're starting your network. And from that point forward, you can build in any city where your network extends out to. Now, by network, that's going to more go along the lines of whenever we're using these tiles to put out rail lines, which I'll cover that here later. But just know that the network is an important thing. But with these buildings, you're just going to be putting them in spots that match. So let's say that this is part of my network here in Dresden, and this is going to be one of these residential buildings, the yellow icon, and I can just put it right here. And now that that one's taken up, if I were to build again another yellow residential one, I can put it right here. And you do have to take these singular icons before you can take ones that have multiple icons in the same box. So that's going to be the building action. And with that, you're not going to get any immediate benefits for having built those buildings. You'll want to try to energize them, which let's cover that option right now. It's going to be this lightning bolt option. You're going to want to energize the buildings, and that's going to be how you get your points for yourself. Now, energizing is probably, in my opinion, maybe one of the more complicated things with the game. It's not as simple as some of the other actions I've already told you about. You're going to need that energy to be able to power up that building. Where do you get that energy? Well, one of the ways is through coal, and you'll see that there is a set of coal tiles over here. There's another one up there on the top right, and the coal is the least efficient way to power up your building because it is going to cost money. It'll cost $1 per coal, and those are going to increase as the game progresses, as you spend up the coal, because coal is not an abundant resource. It is very limited. the price is going to increase. Now it's going to be $2 for every coal, and then it'll be $3 for every coal. So you do have to be aware of that. And you do have to have a network to get that coal to that building. So again, I'm going to talk about network here in a minute, but just know that I've got to use these rail tiles to build a network on these spots here, kind of like Ticket to Ride, getting that coal to that city to be able to power that building. And when I have enough to power it, which there's going to be a number required, this particular one is 2. I got to get 2 energy to energize that building. I flip it over. It's going to score me a number of points at the end of the game, getting me achievement stars, as well as whatever benefit might be printed on the back side of that tile. So that's the building and energizing action. If you're not going to use coal, you can also use Nucleum, but that's going to be something we'll talk about here in just a second as well. So we've covered the building, the energizing, the contract option, moving up these tracks. Another type of action that you might do is going to be getting yourself more of these action tiles. Development. That's going to be way up here on the top right of the board. You can barely see it, but it's there. Just know that there is a small market of 5 options for you to be able to get more of these tiles. And you will pay more for tiles that have been newly entered into that market, paying less for ones that have stayed in that market longer. And you can get 2 of those tiles for you, knowing that the second one that you purchase is going to also increase by $2 in addition to whatever the printed cost is for the slot that it's on that board. But you're going to want to take that action, as you are going to be using these tiles that you start the game with as part of your rail network that you're building, and you'll be doing that throughout the course of the game. So you're going to need to take that action to give yourself more options so you don't run out of these tiles building up your network. This urbanize action right here with the industrialize action with the wrench and the pickaxe is going to be how you get these turbines and mines out on the board. Think of this in a similar fashion as the building action, as it's essentially the same idea, except you're not paying dollars, you're paying your workers right here. You're going to have to discard a number of workers to be able to put these guys out there. Turbines are going to have to go in these turbine spaces, and mines are going to have to go in these octagon spaces. Where is one? Here we go, right here. And let's talk about mines real quick. The mines are going to be where you are able to mine uranium, or not uranium.
Yes, uranium.
Yeah, it is uranium. Excuse me. Yeah. It's where you're going to get your uranium, and you're going to have them on these mines here. And just like the coal, you're going to want to have a network to get your uranium from the mine to a power plant that, let's get one of these guys in here, that is able to turn that uranium into nucleum to power up your cities. The turbines are going to also help you to do that. I'm not going to get too much in the weeds of explaining how all that works, but just know you want uranium with a mine connected to a power plant with one of your turbines to be able to do all of that to energize your buildings more efficiently than the coal is going to do for you, because it's going to get you more energy, and these buildings are going to require more and more energy if you want a lot of points in this game.
Well, we do need to say, when you get your mine out here, it wouldn't start with this many.
Right.
Now, some spaces will have a pre-printed uranium, icon on there, which if you build on top of there, which a lot of times, most of the time you have to pay to build on those, but occasionally you won't. But when you do, you would get 1 uranium, but you also get 1 for every mine that you have out. So the more mines you build, the more you're going to replenish
the better
that.
it does for you.
Also, you can place a contract there to get more uranium. Now, uranium is good because not only could you use it to power, but you could also use it to trade if you needed a worker, and you could trade workers for a coin each, and you could do that at any point up here. But that's how those are going to come out, and
super
whenever you
resource.
Complete a set here, you're going to get that benefit. So you could get points, or you could get that level 3 tech, because we haven't even talked about tech yet.
Right.
Whenever you have your tech, it's going to be asymmetric for you, just like it's going to be asymmetric for everybody else, and they have a path that you're geared upon. Now, some of the level 1s are going to give you something whenever you do something. So I could, every time I power a building, I could gain a coin, for instance. I could, whenever I energize, act as though I already have a turbine, even if I don't have one on the board. Now, the blue ones are different because they're going to be one-time actions. They may let you usually build, or do an automatic energized action as if you had played a action tile and you haven't. Now, when we get to the level 2, they're harder to get. You're going to find those usually by getting the gold contracts because they're a little bit harder. You can also get them from your buildings because your science buildings give you technology, whereas the orange ones are going to give you money increase of that income, and the yellow are going to give you more of that worker income. Now, when you get to the bottom of that, the level 3 techs, those are generally going to be either by getting to the top level of the milestone tracker, which is quite a bit more difficult, but it can be done. Also, completing this set of turbine and mine would give you one to unlock, and you can always unlock one lower if you didn't have, because you can only get 2 level 3s. And there's multiple ways, like these 2 tiles here for contracts, the communal ones, both give you a level 3. Well, if you got both of those and you got to the top and that, well, that's obviously going to be 4, and you only have 2. So you could get one that's lower. Now, these are usually quite a bit more powerful and ongoing effects, but this last one here is your in-game scoring one. And if you want to win the game, trust me, you want to, slide that thing over and activate it, because if you can maximize that, which can be difficult at times depending on your tech, but they all are possible, and they're going to give you 21 points. So that's a big point total that you're working throughout the game.
So the last couple of things about what you might do with your turn, do note you do have a wild token that's going to allow you to take any of the actions that we've already talked about so far, placing it up here. Just one action. You're not going to get to do 2 actions with it.
But it does have to be a standard action,
right?
Which is one of these with the circle around it. You could not just up your income track.
Yeah.
But hence the circle around it. But you do get a 1 discount if you were to
purchase
build
a building or tile over there, that sort of idea. Now, those are going to be the things that you do more often than not in this game. Another thing that you might do is lay one of these tiles down as a rail to lengthen your network in this game. And instead of playing a tile up here, you will never do it with this wild tile. You can't do it. You can't put it out here as it doesn't have a rail on the back of it. But you could do it with any of the other ones. As you can see, it's got a rail on it. You are going to place it face up, though, on any spot where you are wanting to extend your network. And you'll want to pay attention to the colors on the ends of these tiles, because as you'll see, each city has a color to it. So Marienburg here is going to be green, and I'm inclined to want to connect a green end of a tile to this green city, placing one of my workers with it. And that would not only allow me to extend my network out of Marienburg and getting over here to Dresden, but I will also get to do this action with it. And that would allow me to get tiles right now. Now, later on in the game, somebody else or even myself may play another tile right here, and they're inclined to want to connect purple to purple, because then they'll get to do the action on their tile. But when they do that, or again, if it's myself, I'll also get to do this purple action because purple's connected to purple. And that's going to be a beneficial bonus to me that I get, even though I didn't lay that second tile down there. Now, whenever a network or a rail line is fully completed, you'll flip over these tiles here. You'll leave your workers on it face down, and
I just put the workers down.
Yeah,
but you don't have to.
You don't have to.
I always do it. So.
Yeah. You'll complete the network, but then you'll also get to increase your income for whenever you take the recharge action here in just a second for victory points. You'll get to go up 2 on that.
Well, that's if there are 2. If there are 3, then you're going to look at who had done it, and for each rail tile that they laid, they're going to move 2. So if you laid all 3 in that set, you're going to move it up 6. Now, there are some locations that are only 1 tile. You do not get to bump up for that. But I can tell you, usually that's where I end up placing. You get to take double actions. You extend the network so other people can use it. And you kind of move on.
And you get that only part of that network.
And it flips over.
So you kind of get a monopoly.
You can block
if you do
people kind of off of spaces if you just went around certain places. Usually that's not the the plan, but you're trying to make them maybe take a different path because you think that's the best path for you. Now, one thing I do want to say, and it's for all of you that have played brass, this one, as far as your network, is not going to be the same. It's not where you can only use yours. Now, this one, you're using everyone's railways. Now, your network is still your buildings that are connected from your rails, but you can use other people's railways to complete your energized path to get that uranium to the power plant, to that building that you're trying to energize.
Now, it is also important to note that the rail line, you're considered part of that rail line if you even just have one part of it. The other part can be a different player's line, but if you have one, you have a part ownership of that line, let's say. So you just need one, you don't need the entire thing.
You're connected to it, it's in your network.
Right.
If you have a city that's adjacent to that rail, then that's going to mean that you are adjacent and connected in that network.
So those are the two main things that you'll be doing throughout the course of the game. Again, playing a tile up here, taking the corresponding actions, or using one of your tiles to lay a rail and expanding your network. The third thing that you might do, which you're only going to do this sparingly throughout the course of the game, is to take that recharge action that we've talked about a time or two already. And when you do that, more often than not, you'll probably have none or maybe just a few action tiles left in your hand to use. And you will need resources, and it's going to let you recharge. That's the whole idea behind it. How that's going to work is we're going to put some tiles out here to give us a better understanding of this. And these markers would be advanced a little bit. Let's kind of put one, let's put them like this. And when you take that recharge action, what you're going to be doing is you're going to gain money, workers, and victory points based off of these markers. But it's not just how far you've advanced them, because you're only going to get up to how many tiles you've played up here on the top. And if your marker has been advanced beyond that, you're gonna waste that benefit. And so looking right here, the money track here, I've advanced it to this 9 coins and 1 victory point. That's what the yellow numbers are here. But unfortunately, I'm not going to get that because I didn't play a tile up here. I'm only going to get up to where I've played a tile. So I'm only going to get the 9 coins. I'm going to lose out on this victory point. Now here, I would get 3 workers and 1 victory point. And on this line, I'll get 2 victory points. And so that's how I'm going to get more money, more workers, and victory points as I progress throughout the course of this game. Obviously, I want to try to get these markers as far down this line as possible, and I want to play lots of tiles up here, prolonging how many times I do that recharge action so that I get the full benefit of the recharge when I take the recharge action. You do gain all of the tiles up here that you've played back into your hand. Those aren't wasted. You get to reuse them again, and you continue along your merry way. Now, the last thing that you'll do with that recharge action is you'll be gaining achievement stars throughout the course of your turns, building buildings, energizing those buildings. Hopefully you will be if you're playing well. And you will cash in those achievement stars to place one of your stars as high up as you want with however many achievement stars you have on this achievement track over here. Now this is going to correspond to in-game points mostly, as you'll look at what color zone you've gotten to with however many stars you have, and that's going to determine your multiplier bonus for these in-game victory conditions. So this one right here, for instance, is per pair of workers that you have out here on rail lines, you'll take that number and multiply it by 1 or 2, depending on whether you got from this one or this one with your achievement stars. Whereas this one right here is going to be focusing on how many turbines you built, and you'll get the multiplier for that as well. Now, in the game, if you are the first person to get to a certain region that has one of these Nucleum power plant meeple kind of thing, pieces, you will get to choose which power plant that you're going to be putting that into, gaining a certain bonus based off of where it's at on the board. So you kind of get to dictate how the board develops if you're the first person to be in that region.
Now we do need to say you can only place 1 star of your color in each colored zone. So light green, dark green. Now I could place in this light green and the dark green, and that would be 3 times, whatever rail scoring I had. Or I could be 3 and 4 here. But you look at these dashed lines here, and this separates the different milestones that you're trying to complete. I've already told you if you get to the top, instead of placing a nucleum, you are going to get to activate that level 3 technology. But you will use all of your achievements. So even if I want to place in 3 because I had 7, I'm still getting rid of the extra, I'd probably do 6, but I'd still get rid of that extra 1. Now, why would I want to go higher? Well, the reason is because once every player in the game has taken that round of
first recharge,
so first or second or third, then you're going to do a king scoring, and whoever's on the highest level or highest star would get 6 points. Whoever's second highest will get 2, and if they're tied, then they would both get the points. So you would do that. Now the game's going to continue on until you have placed 2 of these flag tokens, and these are the in-game trigger tokens. Now you're going to be able to place them by either somebody getting to 70 points, somebody completing all 8 of their technologies. If the tile stack gets depleted, there's 3 tile stacks, so 1 you're currently on, and then 2 more on the side. When all the tiles have been placed into the row, meaning there's no more stacks, that would trigger that in-game condition. Same with the contracts. When the stacks of contracts have been depleted and they're all on flat on the board, that would deplete it. Now, that just triggers it. You would keep doing your turn, so you may. So if it's triggered and you have your last turn and you're the first person to place that, finish all of your technology, you would still get to place that, gaining 3 more points, because if you trigger something, you're going to gain 3 points. Once everybody's finished the same amount of turns, so finish that round and take 1 more turn, then the game will be completed and you would go to in-game scoring. And in in-game scoring, you're going to be looking at this milestone tracker, calculating all those points. You're going to be able to trade any uranium workers. You're going to trade them so that you can gain points. So every 2 uranium is going to get you a point, every 2 workers is going to get you a point, and then every 5 points. You can trade that however you need to. Now, you can't trade money into workers and workers into uranium. It is a top-down system.
Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
After you look at that, you would also look at and technically before, but you would look at your in-game technology 3 level, if you have activated it and completed anything. Then you will look at your powered buildings. Any powered buildings would give you points for that. If you have a government building, it's going to give you points for all the buildings in that network. So of that type. So you're going to place them later, because they're a little bit more expensive, and you've got to build up to power those, expensive energy high energy bills. So, but then you place them in the right spot, you're going to get quite a bit more points. And the last thing is any in-game points, because you've reached the trackers to the end. Now, one thing we didn't talk about really quick is if you build over here in Praha, it is a wild area. Now, it doesn't work for maybe like this tile here. This tile, the starting contract says 2 buildings built, or 2, building, turbine, or mine built in a gray zone. It doesn't count for that, but the wild does count for when attaching railways to it. It acts as any color when you connect. Now, you might want to build over here, because if you can get buildings in there, because it's your network, and you power them up, meaning you have connected to these paths through other people and yourself, and you power them, every one of those buildings is going to be double at the end. And if you've been able to place 2 government buildings over there and no one else been over there, and you power up that, you can get some mean points. So don't neglect this area. It didn't really get used in the first few games, but the last game, I used it pretty heavily, and it really panned out in a lot of points. So you do want to be aware of this city being a wild and giving you double the energized building, score points. So now you have a pretty good idea of how this game works. Again, not a full rules teach, as there's lots more to this that maybe we haven't covered in this portion of the video. Stuff.
But we gave you a pretty good idea of what to expect with the way the game plays and how a turn would work. So we're going to share with you our thoughts and feelings on this game. Jeremy, I'll let you go first, but why don't you tell the people what you your experience with this one and what stood out to you, and I'm just going to let the people know you really enjoy this game.
I feel very confident with this game. I feel confident in teaching this game. I even knocked out the real review in 90 seconds on the first try, and I feel like I hit all the major things. So this one is very good. I had compared it, scoring it will be on my top 10 of 2023. I compared it with another game that I really like from Board and Dice this year that has a really good shot as well to make the top 10. And at first that game was ahead, but the more I play this game, the more it just clicks for me. I've played the Toku, and I feel like that game just clicks for me, and other people, that I'm playing with, they get it, but the strategy really clicks for me. At first and I still think that as far as these technologies, they are balanced, but you have to focus and know what you're doing. I feel like B is still a little bit tougher to do, but it's my highest score one at 193 points, and it was the largest victory gap. So I feel like you have to focus on it. Maybe not necessarily in the beginning, but as you're going to want to really focus. And if you hone into your strategy, you're going to capitalize on that. One thing is unless you're D, you don't really want to build too many rails, because D, they're all about, building these rails so they can get that max scoring on that level 3 tech. Well, everybody else, every time you place a tile, you lose a tile, and when you lose a tile, you lose a worker, so that's going to add up. And so one thing you can do is just go out and get extra tiles. That's going to slow your recharging down a little bit, but don't neglect your recharging, because the really good thing about that is if other people are recharging quickly, they're going to get their stars on this board to have a lot of scoring at the end, whereas you may have one or two. So you have to be aware of that, and you really have to maybe recharge a little prematurely at the end, just so you can get that third star.
There, yeah.
And hopefully you've powered those higher level buildings that you've put out there and gotten the different uranium on the board. So this is a game where you're going to be planning several moves ahead, and as you know, usually heavier is going to be more what I really enjoy. I like the brain burn, but this one, like I said, really clicks in the networking. Like I said, it's compared often to Brass, or Brass meets Barrage, or I saw the other day Brass meets Power Grid, which is another thing I thought about. A little different, but the theme.
Yeah.
And I like Power Grid. That's my ticket to ride. I have several maps for that one. So I did like this better than Brass if we're going to compare it, because it's in the hotness, that's what it's compared to. But it's because it doesn't necessarily have that market. It's all about building your network, and other people can make it more difficult for you to keep that network together. And if you have Tech A, you really aren't trying to get things necessarily all together, because you've got to build in 9 different cities, which means it's a little bit more difficult, because you have to spread out more and use other people's rails and not keep your network together. Whereas with C, which I really like, you can just build your buildings all right here and just keep that power going. You don't have to really branch out too much. Now, we have played 3 and 4 player games. I will tell you, I cannot attest to solo, and I cannot attest to 2 player. I prefer 3 and 4 in strategy games. Usually, not that I won't try them, but I feel like this one was awesome at 3, and it was awesome at 4 to me, but I felt like the scores were a little bit closer in a 3-player game. 4 players, like I suspected, almost everything's connected, so by the end of the game, if you have your stuff on the board, you could pretty much power anything. Now, coal's going to be more expensive, because we actually started clear through the coal in a 4-player game.
Yeah.
And it might be hard to get your buildings in certain spots, but I still felt like it was balanced, and I just feel like if you have the strategy and you're someone that's going to really plan 3 or 4 moves ahead and read the board and see what other people are doing and how you can play off of that, you're going to do really well in this. If you're someone that's not a huge heavy gamer, or you're someone that is stuck trying to figure out your turn, you can have some AP. Now, I will tell you, I expected this one to run longer, but even in a 4-player game, we had all played it though, but it didn't seem super long.
Yeah,
I wasn't like, oh, this game needs to hurry up. I feel like the game really comes to a close at the end. I really like the in-game trigger conditions because, and a couple times I was like, yeah, the first one's always going to be recharge, but then the next game, recharge wasn't one that happened until after the in-game trigger had happened. So you think it's always going to be this way, but as you play, you're going to see the in-game triggers will swap out.
Yeah.
And depending on how people are in their strategy and how they're playing the game, that's going to adjust. But I really like how it all closes at the end. So several of them may be really close, and one triggers, another triggers, and then someone triggers a third in the end round. So
like that,
all of it kind of concaves at the end to make any of them very close to being the thing that triggers it.
Right.
And I really like that. I really like the variability and setup with all these different cards and how that sets up. I like the variability in the different milestone trackers. The one thing is anybody will tell you this, and I tell you this in card games, whatever comes out is random. I will say that's the same for the tiles, but I feel like the tiles are so similar, and you have to have that development tile, and if you get more of them, you're going to get more of the tiles. Same with contract last game. I went all contracts because I had B, and you have to get those achievements, so you want to play off of that. So you want to play into your strategy, and if you're getting the tiles and not putting them on the board face down, because like I said, you're getting rid of your actions, and if you get rid of your development action, you're doing that one tile wild just as that. So getting the right tiles, but yes, they do have to be available, but that plays into your strategy.
Yeah.
If you're getting more contract tiles, you're going to have more of an opportunity to get that new contract that came out that you wanted. And yes, they may luck into it, but you are going to luck into one that you can do pretty soon too. And you do have these 3, in-game communal ones, and like I told Lance before we did this video, you got to focus on those. You want to look at the milestones, you want to look at the in-game pieces and your technology. Those are the 3 things you really need to look at. And if you look at those and you gear your strategy towards those 3 things, you can capitalize and maximize those points. You're racing to get these done, and even in our last game, you wanted to build the 4th building, and you should have known I was going to do it because I had started that before you, and I had the building tile to do it, and you didn't.
Yeah, so my thoughts on this game, there are some things about it that I do enjoy. I enjoy the turn cycle of the action selection, and that being dependent upon what tiles I have, and that being dependent upon what tiles I've gotten from that market over there. I enjoy that concept. I enjoy the tracks and trying to bump these up so that I'm getting more resources when I take that recharge action. I love games in which you want to try and prolong your turns so that you don't have to do that prematurely and you can get the most resources out of that. Those are the kind of games that I really, really enjoy. And so when I just focus on those small parts of this game, and I shouldn't say small because those are major parts of this game, those are the bright spots for me. That's what I really enjoy about it. The things that I'm not so too keen on, though, I'm not a huge fan of the networking of this game. I feel like it's clunky. I feel like there's some bloated rules in it, especially with that energizing. And even on the player aids where it talks about energizing, I mean, it's like a full paragraph on the player aid. And so that to me is a little too complicated, a little too wordy. I need to be able to have access to my uranium and be able to get it to a power plant. And I need to have either my own turbine there to convert that into nucleum, and it converts at an energy of 3, or I need to pay somebody to use their turbine, but I can only do 1 turbine to 1 nucleum. And if I have the virtual one, then I can do a second one. But then if I build my own, I've got all of these extra benefits. Like, it's just a little too many hoops to jump through mentally for my liking. And that slows the game down for me as far as understanding what strategy I want to deploy. And all the while, the board is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, because if I don't build up that network and get my rails in the first spots, like Jeremy said, these one spots here, if you don't get that spot, you're not going to be able to extend your network in that way, and you're going to have to divert yourself around to be able to find a way to get to wherever you're needing to go. I don't know, it just sort of feels like to me that the game moves slowly in some places, and then for me it really feels like it grinds to a halt in other places. And then the networking is really one of the biggest ways I feel like that happens.
But I think to counter you is, and like I said, you haven't played Brass. In Brass, if you get blocked off on a network, you can't use
I've heard that. Yeah.
This one, you use other people's railways, but I think the only thing that you're stuck on is building in the cities.
Yeah.
Because you can always use other people's stuff. And the only thing that I found that's difficult with that to me is when you're doing these contract tiles that say have 7 cities in one network, and that's assumed one network. And so you have to have things lined up, and like this doesn't have you, so you would have to count going the other way.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can see with that, because everything else you can ride their rails to the turbine.
You can use the rails, but I'm more talking along the lines of the buildings, of the mines, of the nucleum, and even with coal. I still need to be able to get a network that accesses one of these spots on the map that you can use coal. And if you don't have the coal, if you don't have the nucleum, you're just not going to do well in this game. You have to have that, I feel like, because energizing your building is such an important concept that I feel like if you don't energize your buildings, you're probably not going to win, quite honestly, because that's where you're getting a lot of your achievement stars. That's where you're bumping up your tracks more often than not, as well as in-game points if you're doing the government buildings. So there's just a lot of benefits that you're missing out on if you're not energizing those buildings. And for me, that was just the least fun aspect of the game. It felt more like work than it did the fun parts of the action selection, managing this up here. So unfortunately for me, the networking aspect is my least favorite part about this game. And it's heavily a networking game, I feel like. So I don't know. There's parts of it that I like. There's parts of it that I'm not gung-ho about. Let's put it that way. So why don't we get to our scores? Because this is getting to be a 40+ minute video. So
go first.
You want me to go first? Okay.
Yeah,
I'll go first, and I'm just gonna cut to it, guys. For me, this is just a game. I mean, I do like it, and I know there are people out there that are over the moon with this game, but for me, it's just a game. I'm not going to be, clamoring to play this a lot of times. I will play it again. I won't be adamantly against playing it. If you wanted to play it, I would be like, okay, yeah, I'll play it. But we
already got half the word set up. We'll just flip it over.
I don't know if I want to play it right now.
We don't want to play it right now.
For me, I'm going to give it a 6.5. I think it's just a game that, I do enjoy aspects of it, like I said, but it feels more work. And yes, I do gravitate towards the more medium weight games, and this is definitely not medium. This is going to be, I would rate this as heavy.
It's a heavy game.
It's not the heaviest game I've played, but it is heavy. And it's maybe, you mentioned at 4 players you didn't feel like it was that much longer than 3. I kind of did. I do prefer it at 3, just simply for the time factor. It felt like turns were a little bit snappier at 3.
You also felt in a 4-player game it was more restrictive.
It did.
But that's only because the building is. But you also, you wouldn't have some of these blocker tokens like in a 3-player game. So it's, I don't think it's
there's give and take both ways with that. I felt the 3-player more enjoyable for me in terms of length and the freedom to be able to place buildings a little bit more. Now, I will say it is harder maybe to develop that network because you can't go off of what other people are building because there's just not as much out here to work with. But for me, that means more freedom that I can get my buildings and mines out there where I want them to be. So that's kind of a preference thing for me. But I would prefer playing this at 3 more than 4. But again, it's a 6.5, and I just think that there's other games out there that I would probably be more yeah, let's play that one before I choose to play this one. So that's just where I'm at on it. Where are you?
I'm quite a bit higher than you.
Yeah, I figured you would be.
Like I said, this will make my top 10. I have a few more games to play. You might be watching this, who knows, January, and you've already seen the list, but this will make the top 10. There's no way it's getting bumped out based on what I have left to play. For me, this is probably going to be, it's up there. It's probably going to be like I'd probably say a 9.
Whoa!
Probably a 9 for me. It's one of those that's currently in my top 3, but I've got a few more. No, you know what number 1 is? I said the other day, and it's higher than a 9.
Okay.
There's a couple. So, but this game has a lot of good things. Like I said, I've tapped into the network, no pun intended. I've tapped to the network of the strategy, and I'm connected, man. I get, and I have the strategy going, and give me a technology, I'm undefeated. Give me a technology, and I'm going to figure it out. I was a little worried with B, and after B, I can tell you, the technologies are balanced if you are playing well. If you aren't playing well and you're not tapping into it, you're not going to do well. You've done both strategies that are technologies that I've done. You haven't done all of them, but you've done 2 of them, and you have a different feeling on which one you think was easier.
I like it.
I really think so far C and D are the easiest to capitalize that in-game scoring. A is the next one, and I still think B is the toughest to capitalize your max in-game scoring, but it's not like it's unbalanced. You just have to find a way to complete it. And you may be giving up. Like, I've not maxed these income tracks. I've gotten to 3 once.
Yeah.
You pick and choose where you want to get your points. And even with B, I told you my strategy was, I don't know if I'm going to complete this in-game scoring. I can get 1 or 2 levels of it. I don't think I'm going to get the third 10-plus star. So let me see where I can get other points. And I attacked those in-game point tokens and some other things early, knowing I wanted to complete that, but I wasn't sure if I would maximize it. And in the end, I was able to get a lot of points everywhere. And so for me, this one will reward good gameplay.
Yeah, I will agree with you on that.
If you are doing well in your strategy, and again, you don't want to go and recharge really early if you can. You want to try and stall that, and a tip would be to at least make sure you do that development action and get 2 tiles. Doing it twice in a turn, if you can get another development tile or use that wild, it might be a good benefit early, because then you have the tiles and you're more versatile. So I don't want to go too much into what strategies you could use, but for me, I'm right at a 9. I really like it. I like that I can switch up in every game. We've had some variation of milestones and in-game contracts, and I really like the timing of how everything concaves and converges at the end to give you different in-game triggers. I like the board development. I've had this whole side done last game or 2, and then which am I going to do? This one where I'm powering buildings for 8 buildings that I get out there and all are powered, or that's not really my focus. I do want to power stuff to get achievements, but really I'm trying to do all these other things. So like I said, it feels pretty balanced in everything that you can work with. It's awesome as far as if you're wanting something meaty that you can tap into. And there's a lot of different variability.
Sure. Yeah.
So
I can't disagree with you on those points, but yeah.
So just add 2.5 points to his score, and you're good to go.
I don't know about that, but anyway,
energize you.
I'm gonna de-energize this video and bring it to an end. How about that? Leave us some comments down below. Let us know what you think about this game. I mean, this game has been on the hot list for quite a while now, and I know a lot of people out there like it, and there's a lot of thoughts on it. So leave us some comments down below. Let us know what you think about this game.
Be nice to Lance.
Yeah, well, you don't have to. I don't care. You can grill me if you want. You can Nucleum me.
Question his pronunciation of dollar with taller.
I get enough questions on my pronunciation about any kind of word.
That's why they should ask you.
Yeah. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon to be notified of all of our great new content. I'm Lance.
I'm Jeremy.
And we are Hard to Master, where we take a look at games that are
hard to master.
We'll catch you next time.
See ya!